I'm not even 100% sure that this is the reason why my car is giving me a check engine light, but we're getting this code right here. And this usually indicates either a bad map sensor or a leaking hose. So in today's video, we're gonna replace this sensor and we're gonna start with jacking up the car as it makes the job easier, since these are located underneath the supercharger on the passenger side, all the way in the back. And you can troubleshoot this, but since you're taking all these things apart, you might as well swap out the sensor. They're $35, or they were when I bought it. The part number is right here. So we figured, you know, the car is 20 years old. We might as well just swap it out. There's a service mode on these Mercedeses. If you take your hood down just a little bit, you're able to press in this little tab right here. This is obviously easier if you're two, but if you keep this tab, you lift the hood all the way up, it doesn't go back into position. Now, if I move over to this side, I press in this little tab as well, but I gotta lower the hood because if I press now, it's rock hard. So I gotta lower the hood, but there we go. I was gonna say the risk is the other tab pops back into place and then you gotta go back again. But now this allows you to raise the hood fully so it's easier to access. Because the map sensor we're going for today is all the way down here in the back. So we gotta remove these, we gotta remove the surge tanks, we gotta remove, well, we'll get to all that, but also the fuel rail and a bunch of other things. To replace the sensor, these are the tools that we used, and feel free to pause the video if you wanna take notes. The first thing we're gonna wanna do is remove the air filters, and you gotta remove these pipes, and you do that simply by just pulling on them, and they can't be a little bit finicky to get off, but you just pull straight back, and you can actually pull this straight out. And this is what it looks like. So you got two, one on each side, and then once you're done doing that, you lift these straight up, and once they're loose on both sides, you do have a little clamp around here, around the throttle body. So you gotta loosen that, and then you take this whole piece off. And make sure not to drop your clamp, which is located right here, as this may fall into or on the under tray. And before you remove this, there's actually a little hose all the way in the back here that you gotta detach. I'm gonna see if I can reach all the way from this side. I actually had to use this little flathead screwdriver as this one was really on there, but I'm gonna set these aside. Next thing you want to do is remove the surge tanks, as we got to remove the fuel rail, and they are 7 T30 bolts on each side. Think of it this way. This is going to be the shortest one, as it is all the way in the front. And then these two are the same length. Same with this row, and same with this row. So these are the longest, second shortest, and then the shortest. But I'm gonna lift this as it is, but we gotta remove one hose clamp in the back all the way down here first, and then you kind of gotta force this a little bit as this sits really tight. Unless anybody replaced yours, my hose clamp all the way here to at the throttle body was 8mm, and the ones here in the back for me, again, yours might be replaced, but this is a 7mm. So when the hose clamp in the back here is loose, you should be able to pop this up. Never mind, there is one more in the back that I forgot. So 8 bolts in total. There we go. And whenever you're doing this and taking these off, you should replace your gasket. I won't, because I'm cheap and the shipping time was very long for me, so I figured, what the hell, I'm just gonna replace them if they're bad later. So in this case, this was very dirty, and I'm actually afraid to pull this gasket, which I have to, but I don't want to get all this stuff into my engine. So I'm thinking about grabbing the vacuum cleaner and try to vacuum them up before I actually pull, because I don't want them to drop all the way in there. And then once the gasket's gone, you want to put rags or tape over this so you don't get a lot of stuff into your engine. And I'm gonna put some tape over this, because I do not want anything to drop in here, because then you're really screwed. And now we're just gonna take the other side off. It's exactly the same thing. Now that I'm putting everything back together, we realized we made a little mistake, because this bolt right here that's in the last bolt hole of this side's driver's side surge tank needs to come out completely. Even though you unthread them and leave them in, which you can do with all of these, but not this one. Take this one out completely, as you will, when you pull the surge tank, you will bend this, which we did, and we've actually managed to bend it back a little bit. I don't know if you can see, but it's still a little bit crooked. It did not damage the threads, and it threads right in, but just make sure to pull this one out all the way. I did not do that on this side, and this side did not come out crooked, but I don't know, better be safe than sorry. So probably pull that one out too, in case. But all these, you can leave in. Actually, my best advice when working on any car in your garage is to keep a buff tub laying around, as this gives you fresh energy drinks. You just gotta add water. You can visit the webpage up here. You have my personal discount code here, Tidstrom, which gives you 20% off. You have everything in the description, and you can also scan this QR code. It's good to have a clean rag before you put it in the hole. Cover this up so you don't get any dirt or debris inside of here. But this is what I like to do. I'm gonna keep that one down there, and then I'm gonna put one down there. Throttle body, 4 more T30s. They're located in the back here. And as you loosen the bottom 2 bolts, make sure you get this little bracket that comes here. Throttle body right here, and there should be a gasket in the back, which there is. Did you know that the AMG engines used to be hand-built? The guy's name's right there. Pascal Pertu. Sorry if I butchered your name if you're watching. Make sure to put a rag in here too, because you don't want anything to fall in here. And I know that there are other videos on YouTube explaining how to do this, but we figured since we're gonna do it anyway, we might as well show it to you. Next step would be to get the fuel rail off, because the sensor is right down, I was gonna say somewhere here, which you can't really see because you gotta take the rail off and then you gotta take the bracket off, but we'll get to that. 4 bolts, they're E10s. They look like this. If you don't have that, you will need this socket for the job. There we go. After a lot of ifs and buts, and what you want to do now is either you take off all the injectors or you unplug all of these. So you got to take the clips out so you can actually pull out the connectors so you can move this to the side. You can actually loosen this as well, or remove this as well, as this is going to be in the way for the sensor anyway. So I'm just gonna grab a flathead screwdriver, as these are old as hell. And I've learned my lesson a bunch of times by doing this and praying at the same time, and then I slip and hit my thumb. So that's why I usually move my hand out of the way whenever I'm doing this. The same thing with this, you can pull it to the side for now. So this is what it looks like when the connector comes apart from the injector. And what you wanna do is you wanna put a flathead screwdriver in between the clip and the connector and pry a little bit here. I'm usually trying to be a little bit careful. Once that's out of the way, you should be able to just pull this. But I assume that nobody's been fiddling with this for the last couple of, I don't know, years. So they tend to sit on a little bit since they've been probably sitting for a bunch of years. But that's what you got to do. And then obviously this is a V8, so you got 8 injectors. So you need to do this on all 8 of them, and then we're gonna put this fuel rail to the side. So that's the last connector. And now we should be able to move this. Actually, you know what? I forgot an injector on the other side. Or a connector for the injector, or I got stuck. I'm not really sure. We should be able to fold this over this way. I actually jammed in my light here in between the plastic and it's not dumb if it works. All right, so here we go. And if you want to be really careful or, well, particular when you're doing this, you should either A, cover the injection holes, or, well, I got a lot of dirt here, as I see now. I've never taken any of these things apart, and I don't want any of that stuff to go into the hole, obviously. If I'm not there fiddling, I'm not gonna get any debris in there. So I might as well just leave this. I would like to wipe it down, but I think I'm gonna do more damage than good, so I'm gonna leave this as is. Next thing you wanna do is remove this little bracket right here, which is where you would lift your engine if you're taking it out of the chassis, but you got one T30, I believe, down here. I think it's here, I can't really see it. Yeah, but you got one here, and there might be a third. I'm not sure if that's just for the dipstick or for the dipstick and the bracket. This is the first part of the video when you actually need a T45, and it was not a T30. That's the first one. And then there should be a second down here. So when you lift this bracket out, be a little bit careful when you do so, because there is a gasket underneath here. It's either gonna be stuck on your bracket or on the engine block. I'm not really sure about this part right here, because this seems to be like a block off plate. There's a hole down here, but there's no hole here. And obviously this bracket doesn't have any function whatsoever. But make sure not to drop this, as this can be difficult to find. To make this job easier, as the sensor is down here, you wanna move this dipstick, and there is one E10 bolt holding it right here. So now that you got that bolt out, you could probably move this to somewhere here. It's A little bit of tension in that, but it's fine. And now you got your sensor all the way down here. And the one bolt is probably pretty easy. I do believe they're E8s. I'm gonna have to double check on that. But then the inner one here is gonna be, I know my hand's in the way, but I know it's gonna be very difficult to get that. This sensor is sitting all the way in here behind this blue cable. I'm gonna move my hand out of the way so you guys can see. And there are 2 E8 bolts holding that sensor. And what you wanna do first is you wanna obviously grab this connector and pull it out before you unscrew this. That bolt right there is probably easy, the one to the left, but the right one is supposed to be a little bit of a pain. So the left bolt I was able to get to with just the ratchet and the socket on there. The right one though, on the other hand, is a mystery, because even though I use a swivel, it doesn't really fit. So either A, you could lift the supercharger, but I don't really want to do that. So I'm going to try to figure out a way to get that loose without that. And I don't have a welding machine here, only in Sweden. So otherwise I could have made a tool, and I don't even have an angle grinder yet. So we're going to see how I manage to get that out, but I will try without lifting the supercharger. That's the goal. So it is actually true what they say. It's rarely any tool that will fit to do this job. And yesterday we actually quit doing it or working on it because we realized we can't get anything to fit on there. We read a lot online where they say just use a swivel and a socket, and there is no freaking way because the space is so limited. So there is one solution. You could take a flathead screwdriver and a hammer and just knock off the little plastic tab that sits up top, and then use a regular wrench, a 1/4 inch wrench, and get it loose. But I want to see if there's a way how to get this loose without breaking stuff and, you know, smashing plastic and all that. So we bought this little kit that got here overnight. I think it was like $30. These are like swivel sockets. So there's a little socket in this with a swivel on top to save some space here. So I'm going to try my very best to see if I can get this loose with this. Otherwise, we're going to use the sledgehammer because we don't have a choice. Since I don't have a long extensioner, I used multiple ones to make a long one. So I'm gonna see if this works, but I'm gonna try to get this down on here. So it looks like it is on. There you go. Okay, so it is on, but now this hits the firewall. There is no way that I could turn this wrench that much and not get it to come off at all. Because then, this is not the right socket. I don't know if you guys can see, but it hits the block and it hits the sensor. It's wedged in between the two. And as I try to turn it, I'm not sure if I am turning the bolt or if I'm just, okay, I actually got it to come loose a little bit. But I would not recommend this. I'm probably gonna smash the tab. Or if I rounded it, I'm not sure, but I think it came loose a little bit. This is what I use. So an extensioner that is as tall as my face. I don't know what to refer to, but, and then this swivel thing, which is a 1/4 inch swivel socket. This is what kind of worked. Between the tube and, or was I here or was I here? Yeah, I tried like from here, I think. Yeah. This is where I did it. So between the dipstick tube for the transmission and the engine block right here, this was the ass. I'm not gonna, and it took a while. After a few decades, we finally got it out with a little bit of help. So the thing is, it's easier if you access from that side, and if you kind of lean over or lay on top of the engine, or in this case, sit on top of the supercharger, because then you could use your right hand and get that all the way down there to get that last final bolt out. We unthreaded it first with our tool, but then once the bolt started coming out, the space decreased so much, there was no way to get a tool on there. What I believe in my tip and advice is to actually, as you can see, if you can use a flathead screwdriver, or when you have it loose in hand, take a little clipper and remove these two tabs here, which is gonna make it so much easier because they have no purpose whatsoever. And I'm not sure if this has been on the car for 20 years, but it is a Mercedes OEM part, it looks like. I will use a clipper and try to remove these two tabs, at least on the right side, because that's the bolt that's really difficult to get to. Those two, I don't mind that much because I have the tools for it. But to be honest with you, I just wanted to try and see if you could do this without removing the supercharger. But in this case, it would be faster just to remove the supercharger rather than dealing with all the struggles. But then again, I want to try and see if it's possible. If I would have done this again in not film, I would have probably used a flathead screwdriver and just tap off these two little tabs. Because, I mean, they serve no purpose and they are just in the way. So you do something like that. I'm actually going to remove both of them. as they're both in the way. Look how much easier that is. Again, maybe not the prettiest, but you never see the sensor anyway because there's a bunch of stuff covering this. But I'm gonna put this back together and then we're gonna go for a little test drive and see if it works. Everything put back together, and in this case, honestly, it was almost easier to put it back together than to take it apart because now I knew where all the vacuum hoses and all the clamps and everything were located. If I was to do this job again, I would have probably saved myself the headache by knocking the tabs off of the little sensor and then using a 1/4 inch wrench, because this would have saved me a lot of time. By all means, if you do have a swivel socket tool that I bought, if you have that laying around, by all means give it a try, but this is just faster, just to use the wrench and just knock off the tab. We're gonna start this up and see how it runs and take it for a test drive. The only thing now for me is I probably watched too much Final Destination, because you do pop the injectors out and you lift the surge tanks. So in my mind, for some reason, when I turned around, a little nut or a bolt came rolling down a shelf, bounced into an injector hole, and now we're gonna lock up the engine as we start it. And we're gonna put the key in the ignition. You ready? Sounds just fine. We've driven around for a couple of minutes just to get the temps up and see that everything's working, and we're not hearing any weird noises, thankfully, and we haven't got our check engine light back, so I assume it's working as it should. I mean, the bottom end torque is still there. That's good. Again, not wide open throttle, but I mean, it's not throwing a code and it seems to be working. The bottom end in these cars are so sick. Well, hope you found this video useful. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next.